should probably make this one official and announce the guests first. We got 2 guests with us today. Naomi. Is it Naomi or Naomi?
Naomi. Yeah.
Naomi. Naomi Hirsch, and is that correct?
Yeah, Naomi Hirsch. I just changed
your email coming across differently.
Yeah, I just got married not too long ago, so now it is now officially Naomi Hirsch.
I'm sorry to hear that. Brian Lynn. With you guys are both with Sportsmen's Alliance. You guys are over in Colorado right now, right? Brian,
Ohio.
Just for the audience that can not see you, Brian just nodded his head yes.
Oh. We're in Ohio right now.
We're in
Ohio.
I'm from Colorado. Yep. I'm from Colorado. Brian's from Washington. We're both out here in Ohio with Sportsmen's Alliance. It's where we're based. So I came out here to see everyone.
Is it like a big team meeting, or you guys
have a little change of scenery
meetings, or what?
Yeah. Naomi hasn't been on very long, and so it was the first available time we could get back to Ohio. So got her back here to meet everybody, and then had the government affairs gal who is in the Virginia area, had her come back, and so she's here. So everybody's kind of meeting and brainstorming, and team building.
Well, we kind of run loose here on the podcast, but we were talking, and one of the things I wanted to get you guys on here for, I got a bone to pick with Naomi. I got a call from James, so Naomi's got a or she's got a bone to pick with me.
That was not asked for. He said you might mention it though. Yeah, Cody and I have been waiting for you a little bit. It sounds like Cody more so than I knows what's going on, but I've been told I've been waiting for you.
Oh, so if you know anything about like wanting me to do something, you need to get a hold of Jason or Jess or anybody else in the shop and tell them to make sure
I'll pass that information back on to Cody then, and I'll share some context, because as far as Cody knows, it's been lost in the wind. But yeah, getting some contacts with you and getting a group together to better sportsmen and our dogs here in Colorado to have a bigger seat at the table.
I'm always interested.
But it's needed.
But James is another one. James is not afraid to like blow my phone up. Like I'll be having dinner and just like text after text. I'm like, holy! My wife just looks over and goes, James.
I'll put it on my radar. I'll make sure to follow through.
So, anyways,
Buddy has this thing called the. Go ahead.
Get in closer, Jason. You're quiet.
Yeah, I was going to say, Buddy has this thing called the Buddy back burner. It's not intentional, but there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen around here, so it usually takes a couple of us to keep things lined out.
Yeah.
Cool.
I need a cattle prod. A cattle prod normally helps get me focused. It's like so. Anyways, we Naomi, I'm not putting you off. Like you guys, let's get together and talk about that. I think on the long short of it, you guys had a couple houndsmen together, and we're wanting to ask about some things that we were doing here, and always happy to help. There's so many different things, and I work with a lot of different places, and us collaborating and sharing is nothing but good stuff comes out of that. So, anyways, with that said,
sure. I'll pass it on and talk to Cody.
Yeah. Like I said, maybe we'll do another podcast. We'll have it on the air meeting and we can talk about it. But anyways, James mentioned that to me, and I just I'll see something shiny and I'm like, oh, something shiny, and I go take off whatever there. So, on that, what are the topics? Do you guys have anything that I talked a little bit about, and you guys want to talk about some of the things going on around the West? And I know there's other places, and I'm watching the. I don't know. I'll just be honest. You guys have gotten better at promoting, I think, what you guys are doing. It seems like I don't know who's doing it behind the scenes, but somebody you hired at some point, maybe 2 years ago. I don't know what the actual timeline was, but you guys have been engaging a little bit more, I think. And you've always been engaging behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Like, I know you guys have always been key players behind the scenes, but on the social media side, on the, getting out in front of the crowd. What's your thoughts on that, Brian?
Yeah, no, well, Todd Atkins came over and he's heading up our government affairs team now. He's the VP of government affairs.
Mm-hmm.
He has a long history in the industry. He was with NRA for years and years, and then he also has a law degree and a PhD from Notre Dame, I believe, in like research and surveying and getting to the bottom of things. And so he's been in the trenches and knows the fight and knows the battle. He also brought some of that new. We brought in some new tools on the website. If you've seen it, the Legislative Action Center that has the map that shows, the number of bills in each state. It's broken down. That's allowed us to move faster and put it out there for the audience to see, what they're doing. And he and the other Naomi in the office, we have two Naomis, two Brians. We're pretty unoriginal around here. Find something that works.
You can't find a new name.
Yeah.
We just call everybody Buddy.
Yeah. But those two, Naomi and Todd in government affairs, they just crank out the stories, and she's just a monster keeping an eye on things. She worked for him at the NRA, so she was the one that headed up all the, when you see the legislators get gun grades from the NRA and stuff like that was her baby. And so she tracked everybody's votes and what they did. And so she is just a monster when it comes to tracking bills and what's going on, and then turning out quick releases. And then it goes through our process. And so it's hands down the government affairs. The more they do and engage in and get it written up to give us the details, the more we can put it out there. And you're right. We doubled, tripled our output this year. I think it was, just this last session, January to June, it was something like 1,250-ish bills we were tracking. And we put out 344 alerts. And we put them out really to all 50 states, but 44 states had like substantive alerts, like something going on, rather than just open closed session. So it was 44 states, 344 bills in less than 6 months.
Right. Wow. Naomi, what's your job?
So you're
title?
busy. That's what you're saying.
That's
so I'm
the other Naomi.
Associate Director of Communications.
Right.
Yeah, I'm the other Naomi.
Okay. Yep.
It's weird. It's not a very common name, but I work with another Naomi. I'm the Associate Director of Communications here, so I run all the socials, get together with some podcasts, kind of like we're doing here, and kind of get our message out to as many people as we can. So I've noticed also that not only are we getting our message out more, but there's more to get out. And to take that good or bad, there's a lot going on right now.
Yeah. It's
it seems to be.
And I don't know. There's some other groups. There's Howl for Wildlife. You guys are familiar with them. They've kind of come on the scene in the last year or two, and I think yes. I don't want to say it's a competitor because we're all on the same team. You know what I mean? Like we're all fighting for the same efforts, but it just seems like we're in this era where social media is such a quick, hot commodity. Now the downside, and I get frustrated because I get tired of social media because a lot of people go yap on social media and they don't actually do anything. And that's easy to do. I mean, it's really easy to be like, oh, I'm just going to do this or whatever. And I've been guilty of that at times too, where I see something, I'm like, the other dangerous side. And I had a situation where I irritated somebody or whatever, but a lot of times, sometimes social media guys jump too early also, you know what I mean? And so sometimes there's a strategic element that it's like, just because you don't see something doesn't mean we're not tracking that, you know what I mean? And I wanted to kind of touch on that a little bit too, because,
Amen.
Yeah, Brian. One of the things that happened this year, and I can talk about it now, and I didn't talk about this, and I told people that I would discuss it in the podcast. Was there was a bobcat bill introduced in Oregon last year, this session, and what happened was a legislator that doesn't have a really good reputation. it was a Democrat, and it wasn't just because he was a Democrat, but he was kind of not knowing the behind the scenes, the ground game. I was like, there's this one Democrat, and he introduced this.
He's not a good
bobcat
person.
bill. He wasn't, and there was a lot of there was some accusations, sexual accusations, and stuff like that surrounding him, and so he just wasn't the guy that that everybody was going to rally behind. But he dropped a bill that was could have potentially taken away bobcat hunting in Oregon, and
which would crush our entire sport. Really, like that is
it would. It was a serious bill that we were going to be watching, right? But what happened was, and this was like, I want to say December. This is, in the process for people who are listening, the process of a bill gets dropped. So they introduce the bill before the session really even starts, right? And Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but the process kind of goes like this. So that bill was in the process. Just says, hey, I'm going to introduce this bill, and there's 1,500 bills in the beginning. When in the first week of January, when the session starts, there's 1,500 bills that go off there, and guys like Sportsmen's Alliance and you guys are trying to go through them and frantically find those bills that we need to track. You know what I mean? And so there's a whole process in that first week, 2 weeks of January that we're trying to sort through and go, okay, there's a bill we want to keep track of. Here's a bill we want to keep track of. This one's talking about dogs, so we need to, just because they're talking about dogs, we're like, whoa, watch that bill, because we know what they're trying to sneak in. And what happened in Oregon was a couple guys got a hold of that pre-file, and they ran straight to social media and they blew it up. And then people on social media were sharing that, and phones started blowing up. And a couple of us that are on the ground game that know the process, and is like, okay, we know what's happening in Salem. You know what I mean? This isn't a huge deal. This might be a huge deal later. You know what I mean? But the way this rolled out was the whole internet went on fire about this bobcat bill. And there was a couple things that I took away from that. Was, number one, before we run to social media and blow something up, let's find the guys on the ground that know the game, because there's plans that happen behind the scenes that we got to stop. And so by going on social media, everybody goes off half-cocked and they're ready to go. They got pitchforks out. They're ready to go start a fire at the Capitol. And I'm like, hey, here's the deal. You're going to pull up the Capitol. Nobody's there. You know what I mean? They haven't even started session yet. They're doing their introductory meetings, and they're going to go have their lunches and go, hey, this is me, and this is, and they're all fist pumping each other for getting their election going. There's just so much happens that first week. I'm like, even if you go to the Capitol this week and you're like, hey, I want to talk about House Bill, a guy's going to look at you and go like, House Bill what? Like, haven't even heard about it yet. Like, so that was one thing that happened this year. And we'll talk a little bit more. I don't want to just take the whole show. It's like be like a monologue of me talking, but that was one of the critical things about social media that I wanted to kind of address on this podcast. Was we've got to learn to be smart. You know what I mean? We've got to learn when to hold our powder, when to keep it dry, and when it's time to go take the fight to where the fight needs to go. So anyways, that was one of the topics I wanted to talk about. And I wanted to touch base on some of the strategy around that, on that bobcat bill. And then there's some things happening in Washington I think we can touch base on too. So.
Yeah, that sounds great. And no, you're exactly right. A lot of times the social media folks get spun up, and sometimes it's hard from, our side of things. Sometimes is like telling them, no, don't do it. Be quiet.
Right, exactly.
Now. And you don't want to tell somebody not to be engaged, because we're telling everybody, get engaged, do something. And then we're like, wait, shut up, be quiet. And then it's like, it's a conflicting message.
Don't do the easy stuff. Not yet.
But like you said, we do this in all 50 states. So it's like, okay, this state operates differently than this state. Sometimes you have crossover. and it's not going to make it through the Senate when it's going to pass the House, but it's not going to make it through the Senate. Or, it's going to be in this committee and that's chaired by this guy who's on our side, who isn't even going to call the bill up to be heard, or it's going to get killed. So we know all these different pieces, or we're waiting, or we go to talk to them. It's like, oh, they didn't understand what they actually were doing it. They're going to amend it or drop it or whatever. So we don't need to waste human capital telling everybody to email, send messages, call. It's like, you got to wait for that opportune time. I think Jason said it's like playing chess.
Yep.
It's like, okay, we're not going to be able to stop it in these first two committees, but the third committee has friendly faces on it and whatever else where we can amend it. So that's where we need to put the pressure, or where we don't need to put the pressure. We need to put it here, and so it is all these different pieces. And again, like, you do want to keep people engaged, but sometimes it's like, no, stop, be quiet. It's not doing any good right now. It's more
and that's
noise.
that was a perfect example of the Bobcat deal in Oregon. It was like, you guys, and I say you guys because I'm not picking on any one person, but I'm like, you're making it worse. But you know what I mean? By raising this issue up to the top and blowing it up before it's even an issue. Like, what I would tell people, I was like, you're taking tools off the table. Like, we can go in there with a knife and go kill that bill behind the scenes when nobody knows about it. But as soon as you alert the other side, as soon as you let that other side know, hey, you got us by the cojones. We're mad. We're giving you a reaction that you want. They're like, oh, where is this bill? And then they start pushing the bill, and now we got a fight on our hands. You know what I mean? And so
army.
Sometimes you're exactly right. It's like when we say be quiet, it's like, don't not pay attention, but just let's not put it in the public. Let's not teach everybody, our enemies, where some of these strategies lie.
The other side is like, you said it, like it may not even be on their radar.
Mm-hmm.
They're not even paying attention to it, but now you elevated it. It's on their radar. And now all of a sudden, especially if they're on the other side, and this is something I had to learn because, I come from an editorial side of things where I hold people accountable and bash them with a baseball bat. But these guys,
it's a lot funner. It is a lot funner doing that, just so you know.
Yeah. Yeah. But these guys have to save face to their constituency. So if we raise it up to a level 8 out of 10, all of a sudden, and they back down, well, now the people who back them are going to be mad. And so we're putting them in a bad spot. Whereas if we kept it quiet, they could have let it pass and it wouldn't have, put them in a bad spot.
Yeah. So I'll just throw in there too that, we're really good at doing that. We have people on staff to do that. And if you guys are ever concerned about a bill or anything like that, use us as a resource and email us. And we'll be right back with a reply about what we're doing about it. And if it does seem hush and no one's talking about it, and that might be a really good thing. Or if we need to get people behind it, we'll know. So we're always up for hearing about what's going on out there. If we did somehow miss it, then we'll get on it. But if we're keeping quiet, there's probably a good reason to.
And
there's always going to be rumors. I know there's a floating around right now too in Colorado, especially about what's going to happen next year. Well, we'll get to that if we need to.
When the time's right.
Yeah, New Mexico, I think, and so we're seeing. And that was just one of the topics I want to just address on is social media can be a really awesome tool. Like, it really can for us uniting, and we're having we're living in an era that is just we've never heard of. You know what I mean? We had to, fight in the main deal. Some of the things that we did before, ballot measure 18, the reason they got some of these bans and some of these anti-hunting initiatives through is because they were organized and we weren't. And with social media, we're starting to be able to get that organization, but there's also an element that can cause chaos. You know what I mean? And that is, I think that's the damaging part of social media right now is the chaos that it can consume if people are not careful. You know what I mean? And I don't want people to be complacent. I don't want people to just ignore it. I want people to be smart and go, hey, what's the best strategy for this? And so that's,
that's hard to do on a mass scale.
Really hard because hound guys are the worst too. You know what I mean? They're like, I want to go pitch up the pitchfork. I want to go, burn down the Capitol, and sometimes.
But we can in a backhanded way, though. I mean, because like personally, me with that Bobcat band, but the frustration, like you guys are saying, is like we were putting this out there and kind of putting it on the radar, but we could use that time and focus that effort to build ourselves up as houndsmen and sportsmen. Because I'll tell you, Houndsmen for Heroes, I sit on their board and we run a veterans bobcat hunt every year out of Burns, Oregon. And we happen to have our second event in the county where this whole thing started from. Like, use that opportunity to uplift our sport and the good things, the St. Jude benefit hunts, Dornbecker hunts, all these things. That's a backhanded way until the time is right. That's us stacking the deck and playing that chess game. So we don't have to be quiet. It's just sometimes you gotta, I don't know. I had an old boss that told me one day, there's a diplomatic way to tell somebody to F off. And that's kind of what we got to look at. Is some days you got to put on a different hat than you do every other day.
A lot of times it's showing up and listening too. So if you heard rumor about something that might happen, showing up in those commission meetings, showing up in those state meetings, showing up at the Capitol, and just seeing if there is something to be riled up about. And if there's not at the moment, you showed up. And if you do show up the next time, it actually makes a big difference also. Them seeing your face when there's nothing going on, so to speak, actually helps if they see your face when there's something actually going on, because they think, this person showed up not just for a one issue done deal. That's something that we can do too if we are worried about things. Starting to show up and create a relationship with these commissioners and a relationship with your representatives that is outside of the single issue getting mad is something that we as sportsmen can really work on as well.
Yeah. The relationship, I've said in the last podcast I just did, the relationship is huge. There was an issue me and Brian kind of hooked up on, was the dog issue several years ago for Washington. And I was coming out of the woods. I was hunting. I was coming out of the woods, and I got a Sportsmen's Alliance alert on my email. I'm checking alerts, and they were highlighting what bill was that, Brian? It was
pain and suffering.
Pain and suffering bill.
Defining pain and suffering.
Yes,
they can't be outside. They can't be below a certain temp.
Anything that would be painful to a human would be painful to any animal.
Yes.
And that's psychologically to physically, from mild discomfort to excruciating pain, a mouse or a Clydesdale horse.
Yep.
All feel it the same way.
Logical
and
thought process. That makes sense.
And this is a really good example of knowing the person, the connections. So I come out of the woods, Jason. I just come out of the woods, Bob. I'm just browsing through and I see this alert from Sportsmen's Alliance, and I happen to read it, and it was Washington, and I'm reading the bill, and I'm like, the senator sponsored it. She's my senator, and I visited with this gal. I met and had dinner or lunch with this gal. She's got an elk head. She was a hunter. She has an elk in her office. Her and her husband, hunted with dogs. And so I knew this was a pro hunting senator. And the fact that, she was a sponsor, I just texted her, I said, hey, what's up with this bill? And immediately she called me back. She said, what are you talking about? And I said, I said, Sportsmen's Alliance just put out a hit piece on your bill. You know what I mean? I was like, I don't know what to tell you, but
you're on the hit
my
list.
Guys are not happy with you right now. And she's like, what do you, and instantly she had me sitting at a table. She's like, I want to put you on this board. We're going to put this in a committee, and we're going to have a stakeholder committee. And just that connection, just having the ability to text her, and it just happened to be she was a sponsor, so she had, she could kill the bill or whatever, and she's like, I'm not trying to stop hunting. I'm not trying to cause this. She just listened to this other side that come out. She loves dogs. She absolutely loves her dogs as pets, and a little more fluffy dog than she has the fluffy dogs, and her husband probably has the hunting dogs, and so it was just one of the matters that she had taken the hook, line, and sinker of the story and didn't look at the intent of what we know they were trying to do behind the scenes, and so she signed off on it. But had I not had that relationship, I mean, I'm not saying we couldn't have done it, but it made it instantly where we could sit at the table and go, yeah, we don't like that language. And I think we watered that. The way we did that, Brian, was I was like, man, I want to help you get this bill passed. I said, I want to help you. We don't like abuse of dogs either. So let's, you're not trying to take away hunting dogs. And like, no, you can see where they're like, we kind of are, but I'm like, oh, then let's just get this bill passed for you. Cause man, I don't like people starving dogs and beating dogs with, whatever. And you know what I mean? Like all these bad things these examples you got, I don't like that. So let me help you get this bill. I was like, let me be your friend. And they kind of looked at me and we had it cut down on all the things
Trojan
that we wanted.
horse.
Yeah. And we pretty much like, take this out, take this out, take this out. No, we don't like what you're doing there. Leave the gross abuse stuff in, because we can definitely stand behind that, and we'll sponsor it with you. And they weren't real happy which is ironic. At the end of the day, they didn't want to push that stuff. You know what I mean? We could take out all the other stuff.
Yeah.
That they
didn't push the core.
Yeah. And so it's like, by the time, we were actually had a bill that we could support, which was like, you're not allowed to go, abuse dogs, literally abuse dogs.
Have sex with a dog.
Yeah, exactly. It was no sex with the dog. You know what I mean? Like we had that in there. We didn't take that out. That was one of the exceptions. That was like, no, we don't want that. Yeah. Then they weren't all excited about passing it anymore.
So ridiculous.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, we know what your really intent was.
Oh my God.
So,
the mindset of the people that we're battling is insane. Like it is crazy. And it's like, you can't even wrap your own head around it sometimes. Thank God there's guys like you that like, I would feel so overwhelmed and bombarded. I mean, I served for Oregon Hunters Association as a officer and several other boards, but it's like just that, man, you get burned out so crazy fast. You guys must have a heck of a team and a process, which I'm interested in. I don't want to hijack it right now, but I want to talk about the process of like one of your big hit list items right now and how that came to fruition and what we can all do as houndsmen and sportsmen to assist you and let you guys do what you're doing so well. And then we can kind of learn, where do we all fall into that program? Because if people don't feel involved, they're going to keep getting on the rooftops and yelling.
Yeah.
Where if we can all get on the same page, hopefully this podcast will unite some people.
Yeah, definitely.
Naomi, take it away.
We have a couple of really big things going on. We've got a lot of big things going on right now. We've got our wolf issue, trying to delist wolves by distinct population segments, which is a different tactic that we haven't used before. And that's going to be huge.
UP based, or is that, where is that?
It's nationwide, but what we did was take wolf population instead of as a whole and delisting them nationwide, which isn't going to work because they said that, the wolves on the fringes, the wolves on the edges, you're not helping them at all. So distinct population segment is kind of what helped out the Idaho, Montana, Wyoming wolves. You can still hunt them there. They're a distinct population. So what we're doing with that is Western Great Lakes. We're calling that a distinct population also. And the numbers are clearly showing that they're like almost tenfold over what they should be there anyway. So we're hoping to get that population delisted. It does impact houndsmen there a lot, especially their bear hunters. I was just out in the UP of Michigan, with a houndsman, and I was really hoping to get after some bears in July, and unfortunately, every bear track we ran across had a wolf track that went right with it. And we love our dogs, and they were like, "No, I'm not setting my pack out on that bear in fear of wolves." So we've got the UP Houndsman Association and the Bear Hunters Association in Michigan with us, trying to delist wolves in the Western Great Lakes region. And there's different population segments. I'll let Brian talk about the Washington one, because that one's more, where you guys are at.
I was just listening to the Washington Commission, and I was hearing that Washington Commission's going to be sending Colorado some wolves, or at least I don't know if that's what they're going to do, but they have the agenda.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
It's like the Portland of the wildlife world.
Idaho, we got denied wolves by Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana. Idaho's letter was hilariously just awesome. I don't know if you guys read it in the media, but they were saying, we're not giving you wolves because, one, they're not going to stay in Colorado, and two, because of just like the havoc that they cause with just litigation and cost management and things like that. So I really thank the Idaho Game and Fish for that letter that he sent. Unfortunately, it fell on deaf ears, and now we're trying to get some from Washington or Oregon or one of the states that'll play ball. But
I'm telling you what, Washington probably will try to play ball with what we got right now. Like, unless you guys can get Lorna Smith out of there. I don't know. We got to talk about Lorna Smith here in a minute, but
so the wolf situation that Naomi was talking about, creating a distinct population, the Great Lakes, the Rocky Mountain ones are already delisted by Congress, and that includes the eastern third of Washington and Oregon. Those are federally delisted. They're listed under State Endangered Species Act. Is the only reason we can't do them.
Really?
So we're part of that. So what we did is we put petitions forward to Fish and Wildlife saying to delist the Western Great Lakes distinct population. Rocky Mountain's already delisted. We said to take the western 2/3 of Washington, Oregon, and California and create a West Coast Wolves DPS. And then create another DPS for everywhere else that wolves are but aren't established firmly, and call them, because what the courts call it is remnant wolf population. So Colorado would be in there, Nevada, Utah, as they expand, these wolves are going to move.
Yeah.
And we can't just keep, we don't know where they're going to go next. So kind of put under a catch-all. That way we can delist, because the court back in 2017, they overturned our delisting in federal court. But, and everybody was like, oh no. And the other side was saying they won. The biggest thing was we argued for distinct population delisting. Humane Society of the United States was arguing that you can only put them on the list. You can't take them off the list. We said no, and the judge agreed with us. So we won that delisting by distinct population. And so we're continuing that argument and satisfying all the court's orders that Fish and Wildlife has to go through. They don't have to have them reestablished throughout the historic range and all this, but they must look at it and consider it when they're making their approval process. And they have to still protect those remnant wolves. So by going to distinct population, we can delist Western Great Lakes, the Rocky Mountains, and still keep the West Coast wolves on the western 2/3 and the remnant populations in Colorado, Nevada, wherever they happen to go, listed, and not have hunting. But as those populations meet all the thresholds, they can be delisted by those distinct population areas, biological boundaries.
That'd be nice.
Is that a challenge as far as like meeting? Oh, sorry, buddy.
No, go ahead.
Which one? You had a question.
Yeah, sorry. Me and Buddy got a little bit of a lag. So as far as like going through this process, and you found the key for the lock. I mean, really, like now it's just making it a master key and reapplying this across the board and get it through. So when you come to like these management standpoints, like I can tell you, I know the Oregon Wolf Plan is written in a way that honestly it's unrealistic, right? Like what's considered breeding pairs, what's considered a population. You have to have successful pup rates of X amount of survival rate over so many years. If that alpha male changes, you're starting all over. It's like restarting the stop clock. So are you finding that as a challenge state to state to state? Or are you thinking that that's going to kind of be blanketed by just the overall data and the movement that you guys are trying to make with delisting
So-
populations.
Yeah, so you have to look at it, and you have to remember there's federal and there's state. So, in Washington,
Yeah.
we're delisted on the eastern third, but we still have to meet the state ESA requirements, and that's X number of breeding pairs throughout these geographic areas, which they're just about there. I mean, they just need, I think they're just about there, but it doesn't matter because the politics in Washington and the Game Commission in Washington right now, they're taking away bear hunting and mountain lion hunting and everything else that there is no question of population, never has been. You think they're going to ever vote to enact a wolf season? No. So there's federal and there's
they're
state,
just at that point where they start to spin. You know what I mean? Like, now they're starting to spin.
Yeah.
It's like they say they're going to do something. When they made the wolf plan, when they made the reintroduction plan, they say, "Hey, we want this, we want this, we want this." Honestly, because I don't think they thought they could get that, and that. Right? I didn't think they didn't think that far ahead. Now that we're meeting those objectives, they changed their mind. So sorry to cut you off, Brian, but that basically what's happening.
Yeah, they just keep moving the goalposts, and that's what they've always done, and they always will do. It's just what they do. They move the goalposts. Yeah, we just want it here. No, now it's here. Now it's here. Now it's here. And then they'll bring in your false red herrings that grizzly bears. They said the pine beetle or whatever it was, or the white bark beetle, is a major food source. So everybody stop this grizzly stuff until we do a study, which takes 2 years or 3 years. And then, now it's the next thing. And so you're never going to satisfy them. So you kind of have to, like we did with the wolf thing here, it's been almost 20 years. It's been a 17-year court battle, but it's chess. Like we said before, we make a move, they made a move, we made a move, we got a ruling, they got a ruling. Okay, how do we put these rulings together and satisfy it? And this is by the DPS. So, and right now, U.S. Fish and Wildlife is going through their status review of wolves and considering everything the court said. So, we're giving them the roadmap. Here's the way to do it. We'll see if the Biden administration wants to do it. Where Biden hasn't been a great ally for sportsmen in many ways. In wolves, they kind of have. They stood behind the lower 48 ruling from Donald Trump, to remove them. So we'll see if they take up our plan. Here's the plan. I think it will be like January, February. They'll look at it. If they do want to do it, they'll do an open comment period, which then everybody will be screaming from both sides because wolves are the mascot of all this. And so they could do it. That would be the federal level. So they could be delisted federally, but then it's still up to the individual states to put management practices around it, whether that's hunting seasons, no hunting seasons, where, what, how much, within those distinct populations.
Federal's a big deal.
And on our website, too, there's a good breakdown of that. If you want to get all nerdy about it, there's a breakdown of every state and their goals or management plans. And included in that is how many they wanted and how many they have. So that's really fun to look at. If you want to look at Michigan and, who wanted like under 200 wolves and now has over 700. So that's all on our website, too. And it's pretty interesting to look at.
So plug the website. Where can people find this? We'll do this a couple of times.
Sportsmansalliance.org. There's the main page has a wolf on it. You can read more, and you can join to help out in this fight with us. And also, once you hit that wolf page, there's runners on the left. If you want to look at all the management plans or our petitions and things like that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And something we should talk about offline is if you guys want to get on our Join the Fight page, we actually have a page where we let people join different associations and stuff. And I'll just explain it and put a plug in for people. But it's just one place where everybody can go in, or our customers can go in and buy a membership to OUSDA or Idaho Houndsman or Eastern Idaho or Montana, all the different clubs and associations. We don't discriminate. The only rule, Brian, Naomi, is I'm not filling out your paperwork. So I'll send you the order. It'll have the address. It'll have their phone number. It'll have their email address.
Check.
And it'll have a check with it. but I ain't doing I'm doing the paperwork. I just got to print it out and mail it with a check. And so if that works with you guys, you can talk to the bean counters or whatever, whatever. But we're happy to have you guys on that page. Those are just my rules. Is I'm not gonna. You can't make me jump through the hoops and go like, well, we need to know what shirts. Like, if you need whatever information you need for a member to join, you just need to tell us, and we can make sure it's on the website. So if there's a shirt size, or if there's a, whatever it is that, where they're from or what they want to do, or what's ever important to them, just make sure you let us know. But join the fight. Yeah. People can join different hound, and we did it for hound associations to get everybody together. But and we'll have some guys. Thank you. I'll just checkbox everything, every single organization, and just buy one of each. And so we got guys all over. I'm not going to say you're going to sell $1 million worth of subscriptions, but there are guys that just go through the checkbox and just check them all. So, but otherwise, definitely Sportsmen's Alliance. Yeah, sportsmansalliance.com. And you guys, how much is one of your memberships for a member?
It starts at $35. And so it starts there and it goes up with different benefits, 35, 50, 100, something like that. And hat, knife, gift card to Cabela's, sweatshirt, cool different stuff like that as you go up. So yeah, and then again, if you're a business, you have business partners and you can join at different levels and different whatever.
I probably need to renew mine, don't I?
Yes, you are last, buddy.
He was meaning to talk to you about that.
That's why y'all are on here right now. We'll get you a check here in a little bit, okay? I tell you, you got to just nail me down. You got to chase me down.
Yeah, easier said than done, apparently, or so I've heard.
Well, to plug the Join the Fight page, I'll say this: yes, it's a product on our website, but for everybody listening, we don't take a dime of that. The credit card processing fees, all that is on us. You guys, these clubs that you're supporting are the clubs that support us. I mean, they're the reason that we're in business. These are a great group of people. I mean, you guys are working super close with some names that I guarantee you are at the top of my list of just good people to work with. So don't be afraid to sign up. We're not making any money on you. We're sending all that where it needs to be. There's no administration budget or anything like that. We're not the people we're fighting against.
And it kind of going back to what we talked about is, I think you said it, buddy, it's easy to talk smack on social media and say, oh yeah, we need to do something. We need to get organized. We need to do this. I want to send an email with one click. Okay, I mean, stay engaged, send that email. But you can see in Washington and you can see other places, it doesn't matter. It's just noise. It's more noise. Yeah, we got to show up and show that we engaged and we sent in emails and there was comments. But at the end of the day, what moves the needle are those lobbyists or people making phone calls or lawsuits. Yeah. And lawyers and lobbyists ain't cheap, and so it's we're, we can foot some of the bill some of the time, but we can't foot all the bill all the time in all 50 states. It just doesn't work, and so we need that grassroots, the clubs, dogs, trappers, we try to protect everybody. And so if $35 for a year, it helps. Buying a raffle ticket or whatever else helps. That's putting your money where your mouth is. And at the end of the day, that's what's going to do it, because just making noise falls on deaf ears a lot of times in some states.
Yeah, we got to get there's a level of getting engaged, getting a group together, being organized so that the messaging gets vetted out. You know what I mean? There needs to be a ground game at the state level, but there also needs to be a strategic, smart attack. And one of the things you guys did, which I was glad to see, was you sued. We'll talk about this Lorna Smith deal, but you guys sued the commission. So for those people who don't know, Sportsmen's Alliance did a lawsuit here in Washington against Lorna Smith, which is one of the commissioners. And so what's happening in Washington is this commission, and we've seen it for several years. I've been watching it happen in slow motion. I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, we were like, hey, this is what's going to happen. And we're here. We've arrived where I just sat. I was doing some homework this morning, listening to commission meetings, because I heard a rumor that I had to chase down. And although I didn't confirm the rumor. I don't think the rumor was true, but like I do think they are doing. I honestly, I don't think. I know they're doing some goofy things, and Lorna Smith is one I've been watching since as soon as she got. I mean, as soon as she was not selected, but up for nomination or whatever, I was like, that's not a good one right there. She's an activist, and so the governor is putting in activism into our wildlife commissions. Basically, they're selecting people who they don't want to hear what you have to say. I mean, she couldn't say the word hunting whenever she was talking about it. She was like shooting things and stuff. And I'm like, well, that's not how a hunter talks. And so one of the things she was, and your lawsuit basically was, is I'll just let you take it, Brian. Why don't you explain the lawsuit so I don't muffle it up some?
Yeah, no, the commission is a big headache and a big problem and something we're working on. But as an initial step, we just kind of looked at everything. And it says right there in the RCW 77, whatever it is, that for a commissioner to be appointed by the governor, they can't hold any other appointive, elective, whatever offices. Well, she was on the Jefferson County Planning Commission. And we're like, that's an appointive office. She was appointed to it.
Right.
And she, the governor, the attorney general, Ferguson, they are all like, no, doesn't apply. And we're like, we think it does. And so
by the
we
sword.
sued. Yeah. So let's find out. And we went to court and the judge agreed with us, so she had to give up one of those seats. So of course she gave up the planning commission one. Now we're watching because she actually has the possibility of appealing that decision, even though the court ordered it and she agreed to it. That was the conclusion we all came to, because this had never been done before. It had never come up in court, and it'll be now part of the precedent. And we wanted to make sure that we maintain that precedent. But she has the possibility of appealing, so we will see if she does that, and then things will get really
appealing, so
interesting
she could go back and get that seat. Like, what's her motivation? Do you think she just wants that seat as a paycheck or in it, or what?
There's no paycheck. I think there's like a cheap stipend, but it's one. I think she's power hungry.
Yeah.
She loves the power, especially on our side, on the game commission side. But she's also ideologically driven on our side. But she might appeal the decisions just to get that, try to get that, be able to sit in both seats at the same time, which creates a clear conflict of resolution. She even brought it up at one point in the game commission meeting. It was talking about funds being appropriated. And she's like, well, I'm on the Jefferson County planning thing. And you could just see where, this is why you don't have somebody sitting in two seats. You could easily appropriate funds or wink, wink, back room, talk to whoever is there and be working both sides of the aisle there. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of that.
It could also be trying to get us to spend more money, and I mean, she's
that's probably it.
By pockets other than hers. So
she is
definitely to spend some more resources.
Yeah, she's definitely power hungry. I just watched her wildlife committee from June. I was going back through, and a little bit of history. I mean, are you familiar with her Western Wildlife group? Have you heard that? Yeah, she was the executive.
Yep. Western Wildlife Outreach.
Yeah, and she's the executive director. I was going back and looking as of January. No, it was October 4th, 2022, was her husband was the executive director of that group. And so while all this is happening and while she's driving the commission and the wildlife, her husband's running this activism group about wildlife, right? Predator protection and da-da-da-da-da. And so if anybody doesn't understand where this Lorna Smith is coming from, she was I think she was the executive director at first. And then she handed it. I
she
don't
was.
know that for okay. I don't want to say something I don't.
Yeah,
know
she was.
Sure,
she stepped down. Yeah, she stepped down to take the game commission seat.
And then her husband she stepped down. Took that. So,
And then her
so it's not
husband
even like
takes it.
stepping down. It's like, dude, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm going to step down so I can take this
There you
position
go.
and my husband will take this. Like, are we really playing this? And that's where it kind of gets insulting, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I got to
And
bite
she's
my
in
tongue
charge of
sometimes.
setting seasons and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you know, and she's part of this group that is taking over in Washington. You know, her, Melanie Rowland, Barbara Baker, Lim Kuehl, what's the other guy? The Marine guy, Reagan. You know, and they are muddling the waters, anything and everything they can do with the science to make it look, you know, well, this isn't definitive, it isn't enough. We need to be careful. Rowland trots out the precautionary principle. We have to be, you know, take extra precautions. And I mean, one meeting, it was the spring bear meeting. Both Lorna and the guy who stepped down were reading off of Humane Society talking points, literally reading, saying spring bears
Fred
are
Kuntz
lethargic. Yeah, Fred Kuntz.
Okay.
They were spring bears are lethargic. They just come out of this. Sow bears have cubs, and so they can't escape, and they're just looking for food, and this is unethical. They were reading it point for point from the Humane Society of the United States off a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's disturbing, and that's where a lot of people are talking about the fish and game, and I was like, this was 4 years ago when this was happening, and the spring bear was the spring bear thing came up in a December commission meeting, and I remember because I was testifying during that commission meeting on a dog issue, a working dog issue, and I remember them catching wind of that spring bear thing, and instantly I was like, oh shit, like and nobody was really watching too much, but I'd watched that interaction. And I was like, that's not good. And it was because of all these, that was when Lorna Smith got appointed and Fred Kuntz got appointed. And I watched it. I mean, it's like that seed, you know what I mean? I watched that first sprout come up, and I was like, damn it, this is not good. And we were trying to kill it in the Senate, in the committee, because those commissioners weren't even appointed, or not. They were appointed, but from the Senate, they have voting authority in the state of Washington, even though they haven't been confirmed. They're supposed to be confirmed by the Senate. So I think they finally got confirmed this year, which I think
they did. As soon as we sued.
Yeah, exactly.
As soon as we sued, they rushed them through and got them confirmed in the Senate. At least it was on the record, and at least they're starting to follow the rules a little bit. And that was part of the reason to start. We started with the really easy lawsuit right there. There's other lawsuits we're looking at, PDRs and stuff like that. But that was, we're kind of putting it, remember Rudy Giuliani cleaning up New York City? And Todd calls it the broken windows theory. You just start enforcing every little law there is, and it compounds, and that's where we're at in Washington. It's like, okay, let's follow the law at least. Do what you're supposed to. Put them through the process. Approve them. At least let the senators get their voices on the record that they do or don't approve of them, and let's get the vote out there and start enforcing some of these laws and rules. And so that's what we're doing in Washington. We started with Lorna. We started with the conflict of interest, holding 2 seats, and we're going through a lot of other things. And we've talked with people and doing some records requests. And it's not the last you've heard of us in Washington by far.
And I think people are maybe listening in other states, and they're like, "Oh, what does this matter to me?" But it's like this is the political landscape that you're going to be handling with. Just so you know, in New Mexico, in Colorado, you know what I mean. These are the games.
That in Colorado. There's, I mean, our Colorado Parks and Wildlife director came from Washington, and so we have that. But also our commission, our latest 3 appointees from our Governor Polis have been Defenders of Wildlife, Center for Biological Diversity, animal rights lawyer. Those are our three that we just got stuck with. So even though they haven't had a meeting yet, they just got appointed, and they haven't been confirmed yet, but they'll have meetings to do some damage before they get confirmed. So it doesn't just stay in one place. Colorado is looking at, unfortunately, the same landscape, and I hope that nothing bad has to happen before we bounce on things like this, and hopefully we can find out a way to do it before it gets bad.
Yeah.
But it's not looking good for Colorado, and if Washington goes down and then Colorado goes down, they're not just going to stop there. So
that's the game plan.
It's going to get wider.
And so hopefully we weren't able to do it in Washington, but the game plan that if a houndsman in Colorado is listening right now and you want my advice, it's figure out where that commission's confirmed. Like the Senate, if it's the same, the governor appoints it, the Senate confirms it. And so whoever your Senate committee is in Washington is National, House and Resource Committee, or is that right? Senate Natural Resource Committee.
Yeah. We definitely have people on it already. And unfortunately, they're confirmed through the Senate, but we have a Democratic majority. And you're right.
So they have their seat. Yeah.
Yeah. So we do need to go out there and talk to people. Unfortunately, we haven't had luck with the last couple commissioners. There's a couple commissioners on our Wildlife Commission that were appointed a couple of years ago that were animal rights activists as well. And we wrote letters and we went down there and we just couldn't get enough, but we will try again. We're going to be there. United Houndsmen and Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management, CTPHA, we're all going to be there and do the best we can. And that's what we need to do for sure.
Yeah. And I always tell people, I'm like, we all rally behind the Republicans, and we have to support the Republicans because they're our saving grace. But it's the Democrats that make the decision right now in a lot of these states. And so we can call them all the names we want, but we have to figure out how to get those because there are Democrats out there that hunt. There are Democrats out there that are firearm friendly. Not very many. They're getting fewer and few. But if we can find those guys.
I think in Colorado that we're not completely lost yet, because there has been a few things in Colorado, like a wolf thing that just went through. That went through with bipartisan support, and Polis actually had to veto it. So if we can get something like that through with bipartisan support, we got the hunter education bill through with bipartisan support, and Governor Polis signed. So if we start playing the game a little bit, hopefully we can turn that around.
And it's like a dance, you got to dance with these people. And it was, I go back to that example I had was like, let me help you pass this bill. Like, man, I don't like having sex with dogs. I think that should be illegal. I agree. I can sponsor that. I can get behind
that one to point out
because that was on there, Jason. No, we're not making that. No, we're not making that up. That was on the bill.
No, I believe it was on there. I know.
And it's like, dude, we don't want to kill that part of the bill. Like, let's help get that shit illegal. You know what I mean? Like, that should not be legal. And anyways, but so that's like some of that is the people who are ideology. I can't even say the word, but if they're so ideology driven that they don't care, like I'll just use Lorna Smith, right? She comes from this Western wildlife. She has an agenda. It's no joke. She was put in that position to move the needle, and she's doing a damn good job. Like, she's pushing that department, even listening to the commission, the committee. She's chairing the wildlife committee, and clearly Anise, who's one of the wildlife staff guys, says in that meeting, and I was just in the June one, I actually wrote this note down, but like at the 3-minute 30 minute, he's pretty much like, we've been working a lot with the chair, and back and forth on the chair. So Lorna Smith is driving the staff on getting these new policies set for bear, cougar, wildlife, all that kind of stuff. That's what is just dangerous. These governors are putting in positions that these people go in there with an agenda, and they go in with a wrecking ball, and they're not afraid. We're not going to stop them. We're not changing their mind. So somehow we got to figure out how to stop them from getting in those positions. And I think the Senate and then teaching these governors a lesson is the only thing. But I don't know how that happens. It's tough.
In Washington, it's like it's almost a lost cause. I mean, the Democrats that do hunt and are friendly to us and reasonable, they won't step out of line. They're literally not going to step out of line from what Jay Inslee wants because of political retribution.
We lost the two.
They're not stepping out.
So we had Blake and we had Taco.
Yeah.
Taco. I always say it wrong. Whatever. And they lost, and we replaced them with Republicans. And I remember during that election, I was like, dude, and everybody's like, because one of the issues Blake went on was, I don't know if it was a school issue or something. And I remember, and I still talk to him or whatever. He's a good guy. He's a good Democrat. Like, there's few of those guys left, but we replaced them in the political storm. Those good Democrats got replaced by Republicans. And I remember sitting there going like, dude, I don't want to vote. Like, I want to vote Republican. I like this momentum that we have in, the Trump and the stuff like that. But I remember thinking this is going to hurt us in Washington. And it sure did. It was rough because we lost.
Yeah.
Those Democrats.
Yeah. I mean, it's in Washington, it's becoming almost a lost cause. I mean, you got Inslee, you have the legislative branch. They're all on the same team, and now they've stacked the game commission with who they want. At best, it's 5-4. Most of the time, it's probably going to be 7-2. I watched the meeting a couple weeks ago. And one of the new guys, Parker, was actually pushing back against these guys, against Rowland and Baker and Smith and these guys, and pushing back saying, hey, we need to be cautious about using this kind of language about moving down this way or this way. And I liked what I heard from him. He's brand new, so we don't know where he's at. And then Melanie Rowland
Woody?
Spoke up. She said,
was that Woody?
Woody's the other new one, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
No, it was Parker out of Yakima.
Okay.
The fisheries guy.
Gotcha.
And so he was pushing back a little bit, and Melanie Rowland responded to him saying, you're right. Hunters should be nervous. We're changing this model. We're going to do it. It's coming. She point blank said this in a committee meeting. And it's like, so it, again, going back to what we started with, we need people to engage and make comments, but they aren't going to make a difference. This committee or in this commission does not care. They do not care. It could be 1 million voices to 1. They don't care. They're moving with an ideological movement sent down from the governor and backed by the governor and the legislature, and they just don't care.
Yeah. And when it does happen,
that's encouraging.
It's going to happen with a Democrat. I'm just going to say it out loud. Like, it's going to be a Democrat that saves our ass. In these environments, if it's Colorado, it's going to be a Democratic friend. And so if we alienate all of them, and there's plenty of them that are bad. I'm not saying you stick up for the bad ones, but those good Democrats that are pro hunter, pro, maybe on some social issues we don't agree with, maybe dope or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I don't care. Like at this point, I'm like, dude, go smoke your dope. I just want to go play with my dogs. Right. There's issues, there's social issues that I've just learned that I'm like, hey, that's not my cross to die on. And we got to give them some leeway on those, social issues. But if we don't find friends on both sides of the aisle for gun issues and for hunting issues, we're looking at a really bad 10 years coming. That's my 2-piece.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I mean, right now it's just a cabal in Washington from the governor down and all the advisors and what they're doing. It's all backed with ideological and political power. And so the courts are really what's left in the 3 checks and balances between the three branches. And that's what's left for us now in Washington. And hopefully, other states have different requirements. And that's another fight we fight, especially on the East Coast. A lot of states have a requirement. You have to have a hunting and fishing license for X number of years. You have to be put up by sportsmen's groups, or you have to some type of requirement.
Yeah.
Washington is wide open. Whoever the governor wants, the governor puts on there. Like you said, you're supposed to be confirmed by the Senate, but they can serve until they're not, done. But even, so it's Washington's wide open. It's literally the tip of the spear coming into the country. And it's already spreading to Colorado because Jeff Davis came from Washington. The conservation plan that they're putting in place right now, which will set the foundation for them to use language to define conservation in the game management plans and in the department. And that is going to further their model. That's going to hit. It was his brainchild and Barbara Baker's brainchild. Now Jeff Davis is in Colorado. So you're going to see the same thing happen in Colorado. It's not going to stop there. It's just going to keep going. Keeping those thresholds to serve on the commission is vitally important for the remainder of the states. That's how they're going to push back against this, is keeping those people out to begin with. And
the two things that they've learned, if you watched them, they've learned that it's a lot cheaper to be working off of commissioners and commissions. You're taking over commissions. So when we, they're not running ballot measures right now to go, like we stopped them in Maine. I think the Montana one, they did all right, when they tried to take trapping out. You guys got that one stopped, I believe.
Yep, we stopped them there. They only won one. They won Missoula County by a couple of points, and that was it.
Okay, yeah. So we're stopping them at the ballot because we've gotten that. They're not stupid. They just transitioned, and they've been in this long game. So now they're taking commissions, internal department guys. So the staff, the biologists, the people who are making the policies and working behind the scenes. It's kind of like they're infiltrating those departments. And then the second thing, like you said, the lawsuits. Those are the three-pronged attacks that they're doing, and they're a lot cheaper than ballot measures right now. And I think we need to be jumping and, like you guys, suing and stopping them on the legal battle is a lot cheaper than running a ballot measure or defending a ballot measure.
Yeah. Your ballot measures, I get that question quite often is, well, why don't we just run a ballot measure to bring back hound hunting or something? Well, one, a ballot measure in Washington is probably going to cost close to $5 million. So you're looking at $2 to $5 million per ballot initiative. So who's ponying up that cash? And then two, to bring something back once it's gone. What's our messaging going to be? We want to go kill more mountain lions.
Yeah.
And then when they deliver that, we can say public safety that, and hold up some kids that have been eaten up and mountain bikers and whatever else. But all they have to do is pull out the numbers and say it's rare. Well, it was rare for a reason. We didn't have as many of them and, whatever. Yeah. But that doesn't matter when it's in the media and messaging and you're talking political messaging. And so there's the problem, there was somewhere else I was going to go with that. But, that's that leaves lawsuits and taking a page out of their book and turning it right back against them and starting to sue. If you remember spring bear season, part of that happened, the first big lawsuit, it happened several years ago when they passed the spring bear season. And I think the last year it was in place. Two sisters from wherever in Seattle sued saying there wasn't enough public exposure of it for the public to weigh in. Like that got tossed out of court. Then it was the next year they came back and we were down a commissioner. And so they voted and it was a 4-4 tie. And every year it has to be renewed. So 4-4 tie means it doesn't pass. And that's how they initially got it, was a tie. But now you see them moving to, they're talking about, well, let's look at fall bear and let's look at mountain lion hunting. We need to talk about this. And they kind of float an idea out there in one meeting and they pick it up and move it a little further. And they're moving things down the pike. And it's against the department. Like I feel bad for Anise and Kelly Susswind and everybody else. They're working their butts off. The bear biologist quit because they crucified her publicly, like 3 different times, commission meetings in a row, totally ripped her science apart, using what ifs and yeah buts and
Right.
things that don't matter, aren't part of a modeling situation. So they're driving out good scientists. They're giving fits to the department, but giving them marching orders because they're literally their boss. And, they hire and fire the director, and they are pushing them to do things and keeping them busy and looking at abstract stuff. And now they're like, hey, we need social science. Give us social science. Look at beaver trapping. And it's just, they're spreading them thin and just casting doubt on everything they do. I mean, I literally feel sorry for the department.
They're
The guys who are
diversion.
working in there.
There's some really good people in the department, but there is definitely some really bad. I don't want to say really bad people, but some people
Please
that
reference.
A lot of those good people are just like Brian said, just on the verge of quitting, or they're just being slammed because their work's not good enough all the time. And it's because we are on the side of scientific management, and so are they. And when they try to show it, it doesn't fit this ideology, and I can't say it either. And
Thank
they
you.
just get
I appreciate
slammed,
that.
and they they just get told that their work isn't good enough all the time. And it's sad, really, to see the biologists that are on our side and got into it because they really do love wildlife, and they're not being listened to right now.
Yeah. It's frustrating, and I wouldn't even say our side. It's just look at the data. Let's look at the truth and not spin it. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, sometimes I'm wrong. I'm okay. There's things I look at and it can be explained. You look at it and go, okay, but what we're seeing is not even it. It's always the same song and dance. You know what I mean? Like a kid gets attacked in Washington, and it's like, oh, it's rare. It's rare. It's like more likely to get struck by lightning than get attacked by a cougar. And I'm like, really? Because it's been like 2 kids in the last 2 years got attacked by cougars. I don't even know the ones up north that's happened, which somebody should be PDR in that, because I know up in the Washington Peninsula, there's like 3 different incidents. One with another biker getting growled at and get stood down, and that kid got attacked. There was a girl that got attacked in Eastern Washington, and they always, and then that biker that got killed, and they're always, oh, it's so rare, and I remember sitting in a meeting, I said, just get used to it, because this is about to change. And they looked at me like I was crazy, and I'm like, I'm just telling you, like, that terminology, you can spin it all you want, but it's not as rare as it used to be. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that, you're going to get attacked by a cougar just walking through the woods, but the probability of it is still low, but how many times it's happened is going up. It's definitely increasing. And if I got little kids, I'm not just going to be letting them hang out by themselves, in the woods. Like, there's just there's no fear. Those cats are losing their fear of humans and dogs and a lot of different things. So, all right. What did we cover everything that you guys wanted to touch base on? So a big boring podcast about politics. That was not what I wanted to do.
This is gonna break the charts, man.
How do you guys go to work every day?
I mean, there's all sorts of issues.
Like, how do you guys go to work every day? And
that's our life.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a fun day. We're gonna be in politics today.
Just the boxing gloves go on when you walk through the door. Get psyched up. What's your theme music?
I'm pretty easy to get fired up, or so I've been told by a lot of people I've met. So it fits in pretty well.
Perfect.
Naomi, what part of Colorado?
I'm northwest of Fort Collins, kind of by the Wyoming border. Yeah, way out in the mountains. Thank goodness. Not a lot of people around, but we have a lot of area to run cats. We run lions and bobcats we call them a band of misfits. We run dogs that fell into our lap because mostly people didn't want them anymore, or they were given to us. Yeah.
I call it my red, white, and blue pack. It's just
fellow hound hunter.
it's misfits. It's like I got a red one, I got a white one, I got a blue one. Try to have a little bit of everything.
I actually like that. We just picked up a white one, and we have a blue one, and I mean, the white's kind of white and red, and then we have a Catahoula mixed in there, and a Plot, and a Walker, and Blue Ticks, and we got them all. So
equal opportunity.
I was born in Colorado Springs, so I lived until I was about 14. I lived in Colorado Springs, and we had property over by the Roa Gorge and like Salida and Canyon City, all that kind of stuff. So I always thought I was going back to Colorado.
United Houndsmen are big down there. That's kind of where they're based, is kind of Salida area. So
yeah,
I was definitely a lot of.
Yeah, I was talking to him. I was like, man, next you guys have a meeting in Salida. Maybe I'll make an excuse and head down there for the dinner. And I think they canceled it or something this year. I don't remember what happened, but I was like, just let me know, because it would be a good excuse to go hang out in some of that ground.
Yeah, I'll definitely keep you updated on that stuff. I know they've got a bit riled up since the Colorado Trapper and Predator Hunters Association banquet and meeting. They're kind of getting fired up again and starting some things up. So we'll definitely keep you in mind with Josh.
They just did. What did they just do?
Follow up.
Yeah, what did they just do? That group.
We just
a video.
CTPHA. Yeah, the Lionheart video. Yeah. So that was debuted at our CTPHA banquet, and that was really awesome with the Whitaker brothers there, and yeah, we were some of the lucky ones that actually got to see it before it went on tour. So it'll be touring for the next year, and it won't be public for a while. But yeah, that was at our banquet, and all of that money that was raised is going to fight just what we were talking about under some state organizations that do have lobbyists to go fight not only at the commission level, but at the state level as well. So some groundwork, some money for the groundwork for fights that we will be fighting, because Colorado is such an in-between state. They think, and when I say they, like the animal rights activists and their organizations think that they can swing Colorado, and unfortunately they're not wrong. There's a lot to be discovered in Colorado yet as far as that playing field. So that banquet, with the help of a couple organizations, got a lot of money together for Colorado to help with that. We'll see what comes of it.
When you say go on tour, what does that mean? That show or whatever?
It's a Blood Origin thing. You'll have to get together with Blood Origins to find that out. It was a Blood Origins production that they did. Oh, you gotta look them up. They're pretty good.
She's good. She's new, but she is good.
I don't know. I don't know a whole lot about them. But I did get to meet Robbie, who is the head of that organization. But I can't speak for him. You're gonna have to figure it out and Google it and stuff. They were a very big help in Colorado.
She's not doing your paperwork, buddy.
I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, I'm not doing work for them, but look them up. They were a big help.
All right, I got homework now. I remember seeing that. I was like, it scrolled through my feed, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I'm always interested in. Yeah, I'm always interested in some of that content. And I thought about trying to do it. I mean, I've thought about trying to come up with one of them videos that did that.
Shove them aside. It's just a whole nother podcast, just a whole nother group of really good people.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to do some homework on it. I said I just seen it on my feed. I haven't had time to look into it or anything like that, but it was just interesting. It looked like it was a pro hound video of some sort. If I could, I'm guessing, I don't know, but just what I could gather from the.
Yeah, it was.
Cool. Brian, you guys got something else in Washington? I seen another short thing. You guys doing a fundraiser or something, trying to.
Yeah. Again, this kind of goes back to the grassroots approach, right? Like we're a national organization, so it gets really difficult when there's 2 people in government affairs and 2 people in communications. That's it for the entire nation of what's going on. And so, we have to rely on the grassroots folks. And in Washington, everybody's fired up, as we were talking about. It's not a good time to be a Washington sportsman. And some folks called us, and Cantrell Outdoors and Bear Country Outdoors, and then the soulful hunter, Johnny Mack. He was already putting something on in December, but September 12th, uh, Bear Country Outdoors, Cantrell Outdoors, those guys, they called and they were like, "Hey, what can we do?" And kind of what we've talked about is like, we're to the point in Washington where it's coming down to money and lawsuits, and the Lorna Smith lawsuit, you just step up to bat and it's $20,000.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty straightforward summary judgment. Hey, we think she's breaking the law. Make a judgment. So there was a couple back and forths, got to answer each other's charges and accusations, and then a ruling. It wasn't a prolonged, protracted court battle, which a lot of these are. But that one that we did, $20,000-$30,000 just for a quick judgment like that. So if we really want to go after Lorna, Melanie, Lemkuhl, all these guys who are doing different things that we've caught that are like, hey, we could file a lawsuit on that. It's going to take money. So these guys said, yeah. And they stepped up, and they're putting on a fundraiser September 12th at Skookum Brewery up in Arlington. It's kind of on the north side. And so there's going to be some auction items up, silent and live auction. We're trying to put together, African safari, Argentine doves, some guns, whatever. And all the proceeds will go in and go to Sportsmen's Alliance. We'll earmark it for Washington lawsuits and try to keep firing bullets, throwing punches, and at least get them to follow the law and slow down a little bit and protect our passions.
Is there any damages that you're able to claim on that, like with Lorna, or is it just, hey, stop doing that? I mean, is there any there's a word for it, there's a legal word for it when a judge gives you a reprimand and assigns damages, I forget what that legal word's called, but
yeah, there wasn't really with that suit. We sued her personally. The state of Washington elected to defend her and use taxpayer dollars to defend her. But if we had filed suit against the state themselves, we'd have a better chance. This was a personal lawsuit against her as a citizen and breaking the law, being on 2 different whatevers. Maybe we could have put it into the settlement, probably would have gotten a lot of pushback. We would have, gone through the appeal processes and bigger headache. You look at it as a chess move, which way to go with it. We were trying to preserve the precedent setting that you can't hold dual positions and get that law interpreted how we want it for the future. And we got that, so it wasn't there, but in the future, and some of the lawsuits we're looking at, that possibility exists.
So next time you could sue the state, and it would maybe be another option now.
Depending what it is, yes. Yeah, and depending what lawsuit, what we see, what they're doing, they have a lot of gray and a lot of loopholes to get through. But there's a couple of things we've seen that have been point blank. That's not legal, and it had a detrimental and substantial impact on what happened, and so that's where we're looking at some things. And if that happens, then we can also say, because we're suing the commission, which is an agent of the state, we could potentially get.
Is there any way to, and you may not be the right guy, you may not be the lawyer for this question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Is there any way that the decisions that she made, so let's just take Spring Bear, for example, she's kind of was one of the spearheaders in that process. And I'm just thinking out loud here, but, and I'm hopefully you've talked to the lawyer about this, but is there any question like, hey, these decisions she made in this illegal appointment or whatever you want to say it, she shouldn't have held this office. Is there any way to invalidate those votes and see if they go back and change the course?
Yeah. We get that a lot, and the case itself hinged more on the wording of the RCW. And so it was to be elective, appointive, and so it got into a little bit of a legal trick bag and what we could and couldn't do and get. And that wasn't in the cards. And even if it was invalidated, they've voted since that 4-4 tie 4 years ago. And right now it's
Null and void.
7-2. So even if you invalidate that one, it's not gonna do anything. But there's other
So the Spring Bear
possibilities,
right
other
now is
things we're looking
7-2
at.
against.
Well, if you look at where the commissioners fall on
Yeah.
that, it's 7-2, 3-4,
Gotcha.
maybe. We
Okay.
don't know because Woody and Steve are new, and Woody's a biologist. He's been good, but at the same time, he tends to fall on the protectionist side of predator stuff.
Yeah.
So we just don't know how they're going to vote,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah,
we're,
that's the
as
hard
you
part with
said in the beginning,
lawsuits
keeping
is
our
like,
powder dry.
what is the damage on that lawsuit? That's the hard part to, everybody, they're asking me on some cougar
You have
stuff.
to have a very specific legal fight. It's not
Mhm.
just this blanket that you throw out. It's here are the words, here's the law, here's the violation. You have to be very specific. And so that's where it gets tricky, and you have to be smart about it and kind of read the tea leaves, and like you said, make the chess moves on what's going to be the best, move the needle the most, be the surest bet. There's a lot to consider when you do it, and you're spending $20, $30, $50,000 a pop. You don't want to just burn it up and throw it away.
Mhm.
So there's several things we're looking at that have taken place, and like you said, keep the powder dry till it's time to use it.
Yeah,
He's
Washingtonians for
not telling you all
Wildlife.
the good stuff.
I think it's WWC, or is it? I don't know. So there's another group that's got a lawsuit that they're working on, and that's to the governor because the RCW states that the governor should appoint people in representative hunting and have a tribal representative and these different user groups, and Inslee's not really doing that. He's not appointing a good hunting group and a good tribal group and good commercial fisheries. I think that's what it was. The commercial fisheries are not being represented right now on the commission. They're supposed to have a representation.
Well, I think what their lawsuit is that he's supposed to consult when he makes these appointments. He's supposed to consult with recreational hunters, commercial fishermen, all these stakeholder groups. I mean, two dogs biting them is better than one, right?
Yeah.
So all the power to them, and hopefully it goes somewhere.
Yeah.
So we'll keep on. They keep on. At least we're all starting to push back now.
Exactly. Some things are starting to happen, and that's where people need to jump in and support all of them, because it's going to take legal, political pressure to do anything in the state of Washington and the state of anything. I mean, it don't matter what state you're in. You might as well start now. Well, I got to get back. We have a couple people out today, so I got to get back in the shop, finish up the day. It was great having you guys. Like I said, if you guys want to get on that Join the Fight page, please let us know. I'll work on cutting a check.
Yeah.
I think I just realized, it's probably since last year since I done. I'm horrible. I tell people, just call me. Like, hey, buddy, cut your shit and send me my check. Like, that's what you need to do. Don't be shy with me. And Naomi, the same thing, man. If you feel like I'm putting you off, you just got to be a little more aggressive. And just be like, hey,
sounds
pencil in a
good.
time. I'm just, once you get me nailed down, I'll give you my full attention. But boy, I'm squirrely. Try to get nailed down sometimes.
All right. Like I said, I'll give Cody that advice because Cody's the one that really wants to head this up and talk to you. So
we were supposed to do.
I'm gonna pass that on to Cody.
Is it what's his last name?
Lostro.
Okay,
Bull
he's
rider.
the guy. Yeah. I was going to make fun. I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
I know what he's
too
thinking.
much. I know
he's,
too much
he's a
sometimes.
pretty awesome guy. He's really,
Yes,
he's really passionate about what
I
we're
listened
doing.
to
And
his podcast with Houndsman XP, and anyways,
yeah,
professional bro, right? Blah, 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 which I'm not a big fan seeker, but I did like him. I liked the way he talked. I liked what he talked about. I was like, that's a cool
well,
dude.
I'll give this to him. The first time I met him in the woods, because we hunt the same area, and he said hi. You know, was a really awesome guy, and left. And I don't follow bull riding either, but I came home and told my now husband that, yeah, I met this guy named Cody, and he's like, no way. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't. Oh yeah, he was super cool and chill, and and so he is a very humble guy, has a very awesome family, and just a pleasure to work with. And he doesn't care whether you know his name or not. So
it's like when Shorty calls.
Whenever it was his link. There's a Jaguar pod he was talking with him and
yeah,
Shorty, and them were talking about it, and that they both Shorty and he had the pace that I was like, yeah, that's a guy that I could hang around a campfire with and just bullshit and make fun of each other or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like you just kind of get that vibe that he had a humbleness about him that I'd like to hear the F up story.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And the bulls that he didn't win on, you know what I mean? The ones that he almost made it, because I'm sure there's some good stories. I want to talk about the stuff that he got the championship or whatever. You know, I'm the guy that's like, man, if you were successful, you probably have some good stories about not being successful. That's the way my mind thinks. Is like I want to hear the not successful.
Yeah, I'll let him. I won't spoil it for you, but he actually talks about that a lot. You know, how many times he's failed to get where he is. So
yeah,
that's a lot of his speech to the younger bull riders that he's talking to. So I'm sure he'd be up for that conversation for sure.
Exactly. That's when I look at someone who's successful. I'm like, you got some stories behind you that are probably pretty funny and probably hurt your ego, and you may not want to talk about them, but I want to hear them because that's always get a good chuckle out of that stuff. So, we were going to try and do one with him, and I think him and Shorty and they did Houndsman XP, but I think we should do one of these days. I'd get a meeting and BS with them. So, Brian, is there anything before we close up? I want to just thank you guys. You guys, like I said, you guys have been stepping up your game from whatever it's worth. Whether you were pushed, whether you did it, intentionally or not intentionally, there's a whole bunch of motivation factors behind the scenes sometimes. But I'm just happy to see we're all kind of better off with that. You guys are engaging out there. You're on multiple fronts, and people need to recognize that and support you guys because it's a lot of work to be hammering all these different issues and getting, number one, you got guys going off half cocked all over the place. So you got to try and tone down these guys. And it's like, no, really, this time we need to push. And there's somebody's got to take the lead sometimes on when it's time to push, when it's time to sit back, and when it's time to just hold your powder. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we need to be ready. In Washington, I think that, we need to be ready for November. You're supposed to announce these new policy, where they're kind of breaking away the policy. And I just listened to a bunch of commission stuff because I was kind of preparing for this podcast. And what I came away with is like, it's not ready yet, but man, November, we're going to start seeing what their agenda is. And we're going to see some documentation that gets presented to the commission that I don't see words that have been hunter friendly in some of the proposal that we're seeing. It's like, oh, it's not about, hunter harvest or opportunity, or, some of the words that's always been the commission's agenda was creating opportunity for hunters. They're taking that stuff away. And now it's, social acceptability and biodiversity and blah, 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 blah. They're using these words. And I'm like, yeah, you're changing the river. You're doing it slow, but they're trying to change the river. So, Jason.
Yep. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Jason, anything for you?
Yes.
You get back to work?
I enjoyed it very much. Thank you
I
guys
think-
for taking the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. The phone's over here ringing like crazy.
Is it?
No, it was great talking to you guys.
Yeah. I apologize for the delay. I think I have a little bit of delay. I tried to hook up through my Starlink today, and yesterday we did a podcast, and the Starlink was much faster. So I can tell that
That was
Naomi and
great yesterday.
Brian, you guys are probably like, I am tired of talking through this delay because you guys did really good not stepping on me, and I did not do so good stepping on you. I stepped on you guys a lot, I could tell, but I apologize. Hopefully, the Starlink starts working better because the experience is a little bit better if I get a faster internet. So we'll go from there. All right, guys.
Well, thank you very much for having us on.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
One more.
Right there. That was the best example.
Yeah,
See?
we're just saying thanks. Thanks for having us on.
Give us your website. What can they do? Like, go on your website and join right now. Please do that. I will send you a check and just get engaged. Get behind these guys and do that. Sportsmansalliance.org.